My name is Kevin Garcia, and I will be talking about my paper titled Lake Havasu City Housing Price Model. Lake Havasu City is a small city located on the western side of Arizona that, of course, as the name implies, borders Lake Havasu. Now, I frequented Lake Havasu City multiple times because of my flight training as a private pilot. During my flight training, I was required to fly greater than a distance of 160 miles, at least 160 miles away from the city of Las Vegas. This is known as the cross-country flight requirement. And my two choices were St. George, Utah, and Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Of course, I would end up choosing Lake Havasu City, Arizona, multiple times. And during my time there, I learned about the history. I learned about the different parks there. I visited the different parks, the different locations, and it was really such a nice experience going to Lake Havasu City. And with this term paper, it gave me an opportunity to uh, do more research about Lake Havasu City, specifically the housing market in the city. I want to first talk about my literature review. Since I want to research about the housing market in Lake Havasu City, I will intend to use the hedonic price model. Now, question is why would I use the hedonic price model? Well, Rosen explains that hedonic prices are defined as the implicit prices of attributes from observed prices of differentiated products. Essentially, what this is trying to say is that we're taking a differentiated product, which are properties in the city, and trying to figure out what other factors, what other variables contribute to this, to the price of this differentiated product. Now, of course, Palmquist in his study or in his research has also noted that hedonic regressions have been used to study contributions that characteristics have on prices of goods. Now, with that being said, I believe the hedonic price model is a good model for the purposes of this study. The model used in this paper is relatively straightforward to understand. The sales price is a function of property characteristics and property locations. Property characteristics, as you can see, have 6 different variables. The number of bedrooms the property have, the number of bathrooms, the square footage, and the lot size all have an expected positive sign since it's expected that an increase in either of those 4 variables would make the property more attractive. On the other hand, the age and the property dues, specifically if the property has a homeowners association, it's expected that it would have uh, a negative sign since it's most likely that the older it is, or if the property has homeowner association, uh, it's likely that they will not be as attractive to a home buyer. Now, the property location, this of course also has 6 different variables. Uh, the first 5 refer to specific districts in the city, and these districts are mainly where affluent neighborhoods are located. Now, the 6th variable is the geographical location of the property within the city. So all 6 variables, if the property is within either of these 6 variables, it's expected that it will contribute to an increase in the expected sales price of the property. Here is the descriptive statistics for each of the variables in my model. Now, the data I used or how it was obtained was from Redfin and Realtor.com. It's important to note the average sales price, that being $511,906 for the properties in my data set. Also to note is the average age of the data set, which is 27 years. 88.2% of all the properties within the data are classified as single family type properties, with 11%, 11.5% of all properties within the data set being located in the Kiowa district, which is higher than the other districts, which have, for example, Southside District has 3%, uh, Island District, Southgate District, and Saling Hawks District. They all have um, about 1% of all the properties in the data set located in those districts. 65.7% of all the properties within the data set are located on the south side of the city. And one thing that I did not mention previously is that the south side of the city variable was included mainly because most of the amenities of businesses, restaurants, shopping centers are located on the south side of the city, with access to the U.S. Route 95. After running the regression, we can see that property characteristics generally meet expectations, except for the homeowners association, which was expected to have a negative sign. The results show that it has a positive coefficient. And the condominium was expected to have a negative sign, but it too also has a positive coefficient. Even more interestingly, if the condo were to be classified as, of course, as a condominium instead of a single family type of property, it increased the expected sales price by 60% more than if it were classified as a single family property. Now the property locations, all except for the Kiowa district, met the expectations. Um, the sign for the Kiowa district was expected to be positive, being that it was an affluent area within Lake Havasu City. The results showed that the coefficient is a negative sign. And the south side also was expected to have a positive sign, given that most of the amenities are located on the south side. However, the results show that it has a negative coefficient. Um, all except for the island district uh, were not statistically significant. Uh, However, if you look at the bottom of the table, you can see that the overall significance of the model is statistically significant, which means that it could be used to estimate or predict the expected sales price of properties within Lake Havasu City. The purpose of this paper was to use the Hedonic Price Model to determine factors which contribute to the sales price in Lake Havasu City. Of course, after running the regressions, the results showed that the property characteristics, almost all of them were statistically significant. On the contrary, almost all of the property locations were not statistically significant. However, looking at the overall model, the results showed that it was, in fact, statistically significant. Now, there are three limitations to my paper. The first being that my data set had a reduced number of variables, meaning that a lot of variables uh, that I wanted to include was not included because the accessibility of this data was very limited. Um, the multiple listing service, which is what realtors use when they list properties on the market, has a, a wide range of different types of property characteristics that can be used in this paper or in other research papers. However, uh, there is a fee to access such data, and in certain cases, they might even restrict the data being accessible to third-party uh, real estate companies such as Redfin and Realtor.com. The second limitation is the data that I obtained. Uh, some of them were not complete. Things like missing age of the property, missing lot sizes, and of course I could not run a regression with missing variables. So unfortunately, those were excluded from the data set. Now, of course, my final limitation is that the structure of the model, specifically the property locations, are mainly tailored to properties in Lake Havasu City. Because I used the affluent neighborhoods as my five variables within the property location um, category of the model. Of course, this does not prohibit the usage of hedonic price model to be applied to other real estate markets, since it's very easy to tailor the hedonic price model to those specific housing markets.